just record the whole thing.
Okay, but can I look at her or?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll just talk.
Okay.
It's
Real Barbara Walters style.
Let's talk about him.
During times in my life when there were limited resources, I would say that was definitely not something I gave thought to. It wasn't something I thought, okay, I'm gonna budget for this. It was something that was kind of an afterthought, and then it was kind of like, oh shoot, I need to get that. And not before in my life had never really paid attention to how much it costs, and you just go to the store and you get whatever you want to get and you don't think about it, and then your friend is like, oh shoot, do you have something? Yeah, okay, here, you can have this or whatever. But then when it's time of limited resources, I realized it's like $6 for a box of tampons. Didn't pay attention to that before.
It costs so much. It's hard. It's hard to have to make choices between should I buy milk or should I buy feminine hygiene products.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that, I know I never really thought about it.
Did you know that there was a luxury tax on feminine hygiene products in Iowa?
I mean, before today, yes,
Okay.
I did. I mean, I don't know, probably in the last decade or so,
Okay.
I became like, oh, wait a minute.
And it feels kind of odd because it's a mandatory thing. It's not like something you can just say, oh, I'll go without. I mean, if I scrape my leg, I can go without a Band-Aid. You know, if I really want dessert, I can skip having dessert. But this is not, feminine hygiene products is not something in a pro-social environment that is optional.
You can't afford to get a prescription that you need. You know, whereas you have to go into that same store and buy, deodorant and tampons and, just anything that you use on a daily basis. It's not a luxury. It's not like going to take a bubble bath.
So bubble bath is more of a luxury.
and
yeah.
it's cheaper. I can go in and buy. I do it for my grandchildren, and it's not expensive.
The one thing that comes to mind is a lot of people, can't you just use a wad of toilet paper, right? And I think that's a common misconception. Well, that, sort of in effect, yes, it does do something. One story that comes to mind is a woman that got a pretty severe infection, bacterial infection, because of that paper that was left in there and dissolving, and that's dangerous. I mean, that's then sets back not just the luxury tax, right, or just that small cost, but then that takes her out of work, and that took her, medical bills for insurance that doesn't exist to cover things. I mean, there's a lot of expense that goes into that simply because we're not making things that are needed available.
I would be very proactive about, okay, right now there's chickens, I'm gonna get chicken, I'm gonna put it in the freezer, we're gonna have chicken casserole later on when the zucchini's fresh or whatever. I would plan ahead for that. Okay, there's diapers, I know my kid's gonna need diapers, maybe there's some at home now, but in a week we're gonna be out of diapers, we need diapers. So I would get diapers, but I would never look at feminine hygiene products or soap or toothpaste or toothbrush, any of that stuff. I wouldn't look at that and think, oh boy, I better get that for later. I'm thinking, what do I do right now and what do I do for my kids? And then same thing at the grocery store. Like if I'm making a list and I know I have X amount of resources, that is not the first thing that goes on my list.
One of the stories I share is about a mom. She'd been planning to leave. She'd been working with our staff on the phone. She had 2 young kiddos, and many people have heard me share variations of her story over the last couple of years. It still very much sticks out in my head, her coming in. She had gotten both of her kiddos packed up and ready to go. They had their favorite stuffed animals. They were dressed. They were clean. They left after her husband left for work, so they had a window. Everything was all right. And she got to shelter, sort of doing that, checking in, debriefing, just everything's cool. The kids went to play with our youth staff. It's just a minute to breathe, right? And she got hysterical. when she was just so upset, and she looked down at herself and she realized she didn't take care of herself. She was still in her pajamas. She forgot a bra, and she just kept shaking her head saying, he's right, I can't do anything right. And for me, seeing her, right, because we know that she didn't even get dressed. She didn't pack her own bag. She didn't have her things, right? She didn't grab, when you're in a crisis, you don't think, oh, I should make sure that I have that box of tampons, and I should make sure that I have 3 pairs of underwear, and you're not there. That's not where your head should be. Your head should be about making sure your family's safe. And I hold her so clearly in my head and in my heart every time that I work with people or go out and talk to the community, because we don't think about that, we're like, she's safe, which is great and true, but there's so much more that goes along with that we have to help carry people through.
As far as prioritizing ourselves, be it men, be it women, be it whoever is prioritizing themselves, it has to happen when we're in a role where other people are dependent on us. Because if we don't fill our own bucket, how can we long term take care of other people, right? And what happens is, especially, moms are notorious for this, but I don't want to leave out dads, because I see a lot of dads on a daily basis that do the same thing. Their children are first, their spouse is first, their household is first, their career is first, whatever, but they're not. And then they burn out. And so, it's May, this is teacher burnout time. But it's burnout time because there's so many expectations put on them, and one of the expectations is not take care of yourself. And that should be the first expectation.
Right. I think most women, don't put themselves first. So when they prioritize their family, their children, even their spouses, where they make sure that they have certain things done, but don't go for the G1, they don't go for a pap test, once a year. They don't go for mammography. They're all supplied. And those are things that you can actually find out about. But a lot of women don't realize that, and they're not, because we don't prioritize, or we haven't been prioritized. I just went through my physical. I have to tell you that going once a year is, by the time I get to the doctor's office, my blood pressure is, she laughs at me. She's great, because she knows I'm a no-frill kind of girl, but I make myself go, but I wasn't always like that.
Yeah.
And you discover, well, maybe if I'd gone, I've been very fortunate, but there are a lot of things that can be caught early.
Yeah.
You're hearing more and more younger women have breast cancer, and other things that you just think, oh, it's not going to happen to me. Unfortunately, it does.
Yeah.
We try to talk about all of these taboo things as not taboo. Like, the kids always ask me, how's the baby get born? Well, I used to tell them, I wasn't there on the day that you were born, so ask your mom. And that would suffice until I had a child. And then they said, yeah, but you had Avery, so how did he get out? And so now what I say to them is, your body is magical, and it can do so many powerful things.
I think with some of the younger girls, maybe it's the first time, maybe second time, maybe they've been taught a lot of body shame issues in home. It's hard to know exactly what happens there, and in those cases, it's hidden not just from our staff, but even from their own parents. So that's, I feel like, a different struggle that is actually probably pretty consistent regardless of being at DVIP or at the North Liberty Food Pantry or wherever. I think our youth have a lot of preconceived fear and embarrassment around that, and I'm excited people are doing stuff to change it.
Yeah.
And so it's been kind of taught as this awkward thing that people laugh about and tease about and joke about. But then what happens is there's this whole shame factor that's happening where people are shamed because their bodies are doing what it's supposed to.
I think if it was treated like it should be, just as part of the human condition that you go through, it wouldn't be like, oh, I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
I can remember as a young girl, my dad, I got my period, and I remember I had to ask him to go. And it was like, it was embarrassing, and it was embarrassing, you could tell, you know, and I remember he went out to the store, never said a word, came back, handed me like this bag that was like wrapped up, and that was it, he left, you know, there was like no discussion, no.
Do you know how to use this?
Yeah, no.
I think there's so much more possibility, both for safety, for survivors, as well as, you know, just being able to get through the day, and in its simplest form, being able to have hygiene products, to brush your teeth, to do, you know, it's all the same to me, I guess.
And that's also really very important that young men also know about those, you know, when they teach things in school, part of not just that, you know, what happens to a woman, you know, because maybe if they were a little bit better educated and knew what to expect, it wouldn't be this like, again, you know, this mystery, or oh, we don't want to talk about that, you know, that's yucky.
I think there needs to be more education, and I think it needs to be talked about like any other issue in society as a non-issue. Like, we talk to the 2-year-olds about pooping. Everyone poops. It's not a big deal. It's what you're supposed to do. It's normal. It's good. We always say better out than in. And just kind of move on. Like, if the kids pee their pants, we tell them, oh, that's okay. The wires in your brain just didn't hook up right. And just like that, we're going to just move on. It's not a big deal. Same thing if they get their period and it leaks all over the place. Oh, well. I mean, that's fine. We'll just give you some different clothes. And it's just a normal part of, it's what your body's doing what it's supposed to do. I think that we should be comfortable asking for those kind of donations, be it in a school environment, in a community pantry environment, in a school family services room, in a church pantry, whatever it is. Typically you see on the list meat, peanut butter, milk, eggs, diapers, wipes, formula, but often is left off feminine hygiene products.
Sometimes floors at the hospital will do a drive. If this specific issue is one that people are passionate about, they can always reach out to me, and we can set up a specific drive at their workplace or school or club, any of those things, right? It's pretty amazing that we have such a supportive community, and I think as long as we remind people what we need, they come through for us. So.
Yeah.